I can get you to give me 1 second just so I can confirm the stream. Okay.
Technology at its finest. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and thank you especially to our visitors who are not normally here. We are, the first item on our agenda is a discussion on anti-racism initiatives that we could take. And I think that is a really important discussion. The first thing, though, that I would like to do, because we have some visitors here, could we just run through everybody on the screen a minute, just to introduce ourselves so that everybody knows who's who and what role they're playing. So I guess I should go first, right? So I'm Claire Riepma, I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm the councillor for Ward 1. So I'm just going to invite you to do it as I see you on my screen. Jake.
Yeah, I'm Jake Chevrier. I'm a tutoring advisor at Georgian College, and I sit on the Town and Gown Committee.
All right, Brian.
Good morning, everyone. Brian Muscat. I'm the Dean of Students at Georgian.
And Carrie.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Clark. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief with Barrie Fire and responsible for prevention, education, and communications center, our 911 center. Thank you.
Oh, okay. And then someone that is MWINN. Welcome to our meeting.
Good morning. My name is Mike Wynn. I am brand new to this position. It's a community safety and well-being position. Formerly was held by Val Gates, who was recently promoted to inspector. So this is something that's brand new to me. I come from a world of investigations for almost 3/4 of my career. So this is totally different for me, but looking forward to the challenge.
Well, welcome aboard. It's always great to have Barrie Police represented here. Rob.
Hi, everyone. Rob Meyer. I'm a member of the committee, and I'm also a member of BHOP.
Jason.
Jason Forgrave, Supervisor of Enforcement Services at the City of Barrie.
Great. And Donald Carty.
My name is Donald Carty, and I'm here representing the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force.
Welcome. Michael.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Gallagher. I'm a zoning officer for the City of Barrie's Development Services Department.
And Leanne Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. I am the manager of conflict resolution and investigations at Georgian College. And I also sit on, I'm chair of the EDI committee there as well.
Welcome to our meeting today. Sherry Harris.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sherry. I'm the manager of marketing and communications for the City of Barrie.
All right. And Brandy needs no introduction. She let you all in. Here she is. Todd.
I'm Todd Zubik. I'm the manager of security and parking operations at Georgian College.
All right. And then two who are not nameless, but faceless, I guess. Lauren?
Yes, good morning. My name is Lauren Wild. I work with Mayor Lehman in his office and as well support the city's anti-racism task force.
And Judy?
Yes, good morning. I am faceless today only because I'm afraid I'm going to break into a coughing fit. So nice to see all of you. I'm here. I'm a member of the committee. I also work at the library, but I am on the committee as a community member.
All right, so that gives us the scope of who's who. And I'd say welcome to everybody, and welcome to an important conversation that we wanted to initiate today. So I'm not entirely sure where we should start, but Rob, this was something that you raised at our last meeting, and I wonder if you could just give us a bit of a high level in terms of what prompted you to bring this to the committee's attention. And then I think what we can do is we can sort of brainstorm, I think, and figure out if there's anything that we should be working on. So Rob, I'm going to give you the floor. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No problem, Claire. Yeah, so I mean, I kicked off this conversation last month. I mean, I think I've long had recognition that there is a lot of underlying undertones of racism present within our community, and especially increasingly in the East End of the city. And I mean, I make a point whenever I'm in like an Uber, I speak with my driver and I ask them about their experience in the city of Barrie. I ask them pointedly if they've experienced racism within the city. Ask them, I've had many of them describe the instances in great detail. And then, you know, we hear, I guess, and also through my role at Barrie Community Media, we recently hired a full-time journalist who is a relatively new Canadian. They're very new to the city of Barrie. They are originally from India, and they have been recounting some of their own experiences since they've moved to the city of Barrie just 1 month ago. But further to that, in their role as a journalist, they've been watching a lot of the city council and general committee and public meetings, and they picked up on a number of items that were mentioned and words that were used during discussions both about the backyard suites and also about the licensing absentee landlords. He pointed out a number of comments made by the members of the public, but then also that were made by members of the public that he felt had undertones of racism. And as somebody who was a racialized person, he picked up on things that I would never have picked up on. But after he explained them to me, it became quite clear. And then I see the same types of comments online in Facebook groups and whatnot that mimic the same types of language and the same sort of tone. And I guess that's really where I brought us to last week. And then through the course of last month, Judy has provided this really cool resource. And there's a city in the UK, Oxford, that the city council passed a motion to become an anti-racist city. And the motion is not obviously directly applicable to the city of Barrie, and it wouldn't be something that we would do without, that this committee would put forward as a recommendation to council without fulsome discussion with represented groups. So it's really great that Donald, you're here, and Lauren, you're here, and also Leanne in your role at the college. It's great that there's this number of people representing different communities here to kick off this conversation. And so maybe I'll just leave it there. But I think ultimately, if we could get to a point where we can come up with a recommended motion that council could consider adopting to have Barrie become an anti-racist city, then I think that would be a really great outcome for this committee to achieve.
All right, thanks for that introduction. And I guess my experience of it is somewhat similar. Of course, in my role, I end up talking to a lot of people. And of course, the two items that you mentioned, the accessory suites in the rear yards and absentee landlord issues, they certainly raised a lot of concerns, especially in Ward 1. They're applicable to other areas as well, but Ward 1 seems to have the brunt of it. And I must say that, yeah, I certainly hear it from people just in the remarks that they make. And you know, one of the things that I suspect you're very right about, Rob, is that you don't know what you don't know. And I suspect that there's a fair bit of sort of overt racism where people just don't like people that are not like them. I think those are they exist. They aren't in the majority by any means, but I do think there's a lot of, and you might call it systemic racism. You might call it just inadvertence or just a lack of understanding, and a lack of understanding how people pick up the little comments that people make. And I'm reminded of your comment the other day, Rob, where you said, you know, so often people say, well, I've lived in Ward 1 for 10, 15, 100 years, and a newcomer coming to this area can pick that up as saying, I'm a newcomer and therefore I don't belong. And I think those are the kinds of things that we need to think about and figure out how we can move this conversation forward. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time in terms of my observations, but that's where what I see. Anybody else want to comment on this? I may just toss it over to Dawn Carty, because I think you've been involved in this, and maybe you could bring us up to date on where your task force is at.
What I did was, because my name was actually on the agenda, was I actually prepared a 10-minute sort of a speaking presentation, just so that we kind of get a glimpse of where we are with the task force and some of the things that we've done. So because we just began in January, so don't mind, I'll just read that, and then maybe that can help to stoke the conversation, if that's all right with everyone.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, so we're just going to scroll back up to the top here. So on June 29, 2020, the City Council approved a motion sponsored by Barrie Police to establish an anti-racism task force. We are a group of 7 volunteers who have been chosen to work actively with the community and began our work in January of 2021, and are supported by a wonderful administrative assistant, Lauren Wild, who happens to be with us. We
all think she's wonderful.
Yeah. So our mandate is that the task force will bridge and promote a stronger, more positive understanding and representation of the city's racialized groups through actively working with and holding accountable police services, educational systems, health services, community groups, associations, municipal organizations, social services, business, labor, and government. The Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force will focus on the following 5 action themes to affect positive change in the city. So the first one is understanding, and this is to address and promote a stronger understanding of the needs of the city's racialized populations. 2 is messaging, to create and expand race-based programming, education, and resources to raise awareness about racism and the impacts of white privilege and dominance. 3, connecting, to raise awareness and correct the absence of a significant reflection of the city's diversity within its institutions and create safe spaces for dialogue. 4, transitioning, to challenge workplace practices, evaluate and promote changes that address the needs of the city's racialized populations. And the 5th is strengthening, to establish institutional accountability that ensures and strengthens the involvement and sense of belonging and well-being of racialized persons. So some of the activities that we were involved in, we were on a panel with the Canadian Roots Exchange panel, and we had a discussion on building respect and reciprocity about anti-racism and decolonization. We did a coffee chat at the Barrie Public Community Library through Zoom. We're working with, collaborating with the Barrie Public Library right now on a speaker series that'll start running in January. And we're also working on something called an anti-racism pledge, which is something that was sort of alluded to at the very beginning of the conversation that started right in this meeting. As far as public awareness and communication, we've done some things with the media. We're actually on the advisory council with the Barrie Advance, which is now Torstar. We are creating a web presence and social media, which is now just in progress. We've done a number of interviews and press releases concerning the mandate and the themes. We're in a video with the mayor and the police chief with an It Starts campaign video. And we've had a number of news articles in some of the local media, as well as an op-ed that was published on the star.com and also very advanced, and many others. And the title of that was Feeling of Belonging is Key to Building Inclusion. Some of the other things that we've done is we've participated in a focus group where the Barrie Police wanted to review its organizational culture and systems. We created 2 public police services videos, which were about unconscious bias, bigotry, and stereotypes. There was a number of videos also for the RVH interns, microaggressions, social determinants of health. Also, we have a presence, the Barrie and Area Ontario Health Team, Barrie Advanced Advisory, the RVH PFAC, 3 there, spirituality, diversity and inclusion. Also with the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic School Board, we're involved in equity thought exchange, and we spoke about equity, and the Simcoe Muskoka Black Community Development Council. Also, there was a presentation done for the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging campaign at RVH on colonialism and belonging. And the Barrie Police also asked us to have a look at their Inside Out program that they wanted to introduce into the schools. We worked with the Barrie and Area Native Advisory Council on a grant application, and we supported Georgian College's application to develop and deliver activities associated with newcomer labor market orientation services in the county of Simcoe. We also come from an informed lens or representation because we are on a number of different committees or involved in work in the educational sector, health services, community groups and associations, social services, government institutions, advisory councils, and the media. We have a research project now, which the objective is to understand the experience of racialized peoples with working within healthcare, policing, municipal government, and education within Barrie, and to explore anti-racism practices within each employment sector. The sample population will be employees with a specific focus on those in leadership positions of each employment sector as determined by the Anti-Racism Task Force. And the study design will be a qualitative description using participatory action research. So there'll be interview data that will be collected through focus groups. Survey data will be calculated from focus group participants, and all data will be analyzed in partnership with the Anti-Racism Task Force. In November, or where we are right now, is at the very beginning, we made a commitment at the task force that we would transition Barrie into an anti-racist city that intentionally addresses racism in all its forms. We will develop and act on long and short-term initiatives that progressively move us forward. We acknowledge that this is just the beginning of our journey, and we'll add more specific measurable goals as we listen and learn. The Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force will work with a seriousness to make substantive and transformative change, but remains acutely aware that racism is not a momentary issue. It is a systemic issue that demands sustained attention. So this is where we are now. We are blessed to have a group of volunteers, college students actually, that are heading this research project. And we're right now at the proposal stage, and the goal is to begin the process of onboarding additional organizations to help with research so we get as many sets of eyes and opinions on the work we are doing. And if you're interested, you can reach our research lead, Erica Campbell, at employmentresearch.barrie@gmail.com. And this is our message. The citizens of Barrie value equality, fairness, and opportunity for all, which is why we cannot tolerate racism within our community. But racism does still exist. It comes in many forms and happens in many places. It can be easy to ignore or to think it's not worth the trouble of responding, but that attitude helps make racism more acceptable. We all have a responsibility to stand against racism. We must all say no to prejudice, discrimination, and hate, together with a united voice. Racism shifts according to social and political conditions, shifting our focus from one frame to another without reflecting on reality. In the background, percolating through all these decades, if not century, has been anti-Indigenous and anti-Black racism, both pillars of a colonial settler society anchored in white privilege. Now, this privilege does not mean that your life is easier, but understanding it can make you realize why some people's lives are harder than they should be. The rise in hate crimes, the truth of residential schools, and the glaring inequities that have been exposed more so because of the pandemic has intensified public attention, prompting people and organizations to ask, how can we help make change? That is why we are also shifting our approach slightly now with the launch of a website and social media campaign that will provide tools and resources to help people and organizations learn about racism and, more importantly, stand against it by acting for positive change. So the focus will be to learn more about racism, how to respond effectively when racism occurs, how to be a good ally, and how to act for positive change. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that helps a little bit. I think I was in a 10-minute time frame, I hope.
You know what? We didn't set a time frame for you, and and I think that was very well put, Donald. And I think that's what this committee is about. Is how do we engage with you, with the college, with the community in making change, and what do we need to do and need to encourage people to do to make that change. All right. Any reflections? Rob.
I mean, I'll just jump in and say, Donald, I wasn't aware of the level of work that your task force has been up to. So it's really great to hear everything that you've just explained to us, because I mean, I think that really charts out a path, and it is the direction that we all need to push the city to go towards. So really, I think for me, the question is, I mean, the task force has lots, clearly you have good composition and you've been doing great work. This committee has the unique ability to suggest policy direction to council through our reporting committee and then general committee up to council. So ultimately, is there a way, and I mean, maybe not at this time, but how can this committee help bolster your efforts? And if there is a way that we can push council in a way that the task force is not able to, then I know I fully would be willing to use this committee to help support your efforts.
There's a great program that they introduced in Australia that they did a national campaign, and it says, racism, it stops with me. And they've also had some ancillary things that are attached to that, which has that same sort of a message. I'm almost in tears right now because what you just said, Rob, was exactly what I was hoping we'd be able to do. Because in this campaign launch, the more people we get involved in, and this is the kind of campaign that we would like to run, so that we're basically talking about racism, but we're going to show people actionable steps, how to call it out, how to respond to it safely. And that's where it really has to come from. So we're kind of moving the focus a little more to the individual, but it also gives us a much, it removes a lot of fear once we get to know each other a lot better and hang out with each other and raise the awareness of the diversity and the beauty of this community. Things can shift very quickly. But this national campaign that they ran in Australia has been incredibly successful. And I've already put it out to the people that are designing our website that that's going to be our main focus, beginning with the launch of that. So I'd like to, we're waiting for, they're going to help us to come up with our own campaign slogan, which would be similar to that. And if we could get an endorsement or some sort of push forward on this, I think that'll fit quite nicely with what this, how some of this was introduced at the very beginning of this. What can we do about racism and that kind of thing? I think if we had a campaign like that, we can make stickers, buttons, things like that. It'll help us too to promote it in stores. We can make stickers. That'll also bring into consideration, instead of doing a charter, I'm looking at more in a way of gathering names where people pledge themselves to support this anti-racism campaign. And we've already figured out a way that we're going to be able to do that digitally and capture names with comments and things like that. And we can have that flash. So I want to thank you, Rob, for giving me the opportunity to introduce that idea. But I'm hoping we can get some help with that once we come up. We're just in the early phases of it. We'll know more after our next meeting on Monday. and then how we're going to move forward with the campaign.
All right. It strikes me that, we're in kind of a unique position here where we have sort of community representation as well as the college. And there's probably a really good linkage there for the task force as well. Yeah. Brian, any thoughts in terms of, I know that the college is doing some things. Fill us in on where you're at, and then maybe there's an introduction we can make. We could introduce you to Don.
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk a little bit, but Leanne is our great resource from the college. So I'll let her jump in a minute, but we are certainly trying to do some work at the college around anti-racism. We recently received a grant, and part of that we've used to hire a director of. So we're trying to make a push toward this, and particularly because we see as our student numbers are increasingly more diverse with international students. A lot of, at least what I hear from students, is sometimes definitely very overt racism, but very often it's the microaggressions. And so helping us all start to learn and understand where our own unconscious biases are. So I think this training that Donald talked about that he and the task force are doing, is really great work. I was just taking a look at the Australian site that he mentioned, and it looks very interesting and very similar in a way to some of what we do with our students around sexual violence and sort of that bystander and intervention. So using some of those same concepts then and applying that toward racism. But I'll let Leanne jump in because she's our expert.
Sure, thanks, Brian. So we have a lot going on at the college right now in terms of equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism. We, as Brian mentioned, we recently hired a director of EDI, Sula, who wanted to be here today, but wasn't able to make it. But she will be very interested in the information you just shared, Donald. So if we can maybe offline share the information with Sula, all of what you just shared would be, I'm sure, of a big interest to her. We were part of the community safety and well-being sort of task force that created the plan. And in that plan, Georgian also has a lead role to launch a Barrie Inclusion Network. And that's also about bringing together all the different organizations, partners within the community to create sort of common information sharing, common grounds to work together on all of these goals. So there is that coming forward as well. It was titled the Barrie Inclusion Network, and that's part of the community safety and well-being plan. In addition to that, I have a bit of a unique role in that I sit within Campus Safety Services, and I also sit on the EDI committee. Certainly a great deal of the diversity we're seeing in Barrie has a lot to do with the increasing number of international students at the college. And in working with them from a community safety standpoint, I think we do have a lot of work to do in terms of creating a welcoming community for those students. And we certainly need partnerships and help from everybody at this committee in order to do that. So there's a lot of work happening within the walls of Georgian, and there's a lot of work to be done. Sula's sort of first task is to create a strategic plan. There is a number of different groups within the college that do anti-racism work, do EDI work. And so Sula will be sort of bringing that together under a more strategic initiative moving forward. But a big part of us moving forward is creating that inclusion, that welcoming within the city of Barrie as well. We do have students who are experiencing overt racism, violence, harassment. We have a lot of students who are finding some of our neighboring communities more welcoming. That's where they're going to find employment. That's where they're going to find a safe living arrangements. We have seen a significant issue with landlords in the city of Barrie. And so the only way that we can tackle that is through partnerships like this one. And so I think part of the strategic plan will also be to connect. And I'm grateful to be here and be a part of this conversation, and excited to learn about some of the work that everybody else is doing here. But that was a lot, so I'll pause for now, and maybe I'll throw it over to Jake as well, who is a member of our EDI committee, and he has his hand up there.
All right, go ahead, Jake.
Thanks, Leanne, and thank you, Claire. I'm just curious. I have a couple of comments, and my first one, Donald, you had mentioned the website that the task force is working on, and I was wondering if there was an anticipated launch date for that.
We're looking at January, sometime in January, preferably near the end. We're simplifying it because, as we know, racism shifts. There's been a big shift lately. We're all moving into these little silos, and we're all kind of, so I love this idea about this inclusion network. It'd be the biggest thing that could happen here in Barrie. There we can use a charter. There we can get everybody and pull everybody out of these silos. I've been in this since, I'm 65 years old. I've been doing this for over 45 years. I was on the City of Toronto's first Mayor's Committee on Community Race Relations, and the National Black Coalition of Canada, where we actually focused on constitutional work and things like that. But so it's funny because Barrie right now, demographically, is pretty much where Toronto was 45 years ago, and with the influx of immigrants and all that. So we can see now how that started to shift. You'll also notice too that our media here has shifted. If you looked at last week's Barrie Advance, you'll see now that there's a lot more representation of people of color and racialized communities within that paper. So there are things that are shifting and changing to help bring this closer to home. Because I think, Jake, that's where it's really going to help us. The more inclusive we'll become that way. Because let's face it, belonging is a big thing for me. And because we all know what it feels like to not belong. And we also know what it feels like to belong. So if we can push that kind of a thing with that wording, because belonging comes from the heart, inclusion comes from the head. So if we can focus more on that heart area, I think we've got a real good chance of moving this across. And so far, I'm so excited to be in this meeting right now because there's so much positive stuff coming from this that we can accomplish a lot together. We can, if we can just all get together. Just as Leanne had mentioned, this is perfect. I love it. Thank you all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I rambled, Jake.
No. It's great. And I really love what you had said, that belonging comes from the heart and inclusion comes from the head. I think that's going to stick with me for a while. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate you coming here today, because that's how the system changes. Right? Find like-minded individuals with a shared goal, and I think that's what we're all here to do today. I know that our town and gown committee composition, I mean, it's not hard to see that there's not a lot of diversity within our own committee or table or group here. And I'm curious, when it comes time to kind of have nominations or people apply to be on the board, what kind of and I'm not aware of this, but what kind of marketing are we doing to some of the more marginalized communities, some of the Barrie Native Friendship Center or so forth? Is there any sort of outreach that we do within that to make sure that we're reaching out to those communities so that we can hear those voices within this council? And then also, should there be some sort of training offered to folks on these kinds of committees to learn about what those microaggressions look like, what a microaffirmation is, how we can become aware of some of those unconscious bias that we might potentially have that could potentially come up in these kinds of meetings, right? And what kind of change, I guess, starting with this committee, because this is what we are, can we start to implement moving forward?
Yeah, maybe I should answer a bit of that. I think that You're very right. And I think it's quite unconscious, but it's just the way that it's always been done. This committee is chosen by council, and what happens is that an ad goes in the paper or goes out on social network, inviting applications once every 4 years, right after the municipal election, and then council sits around and says, oh yeah, you know, this person would be great. This person, you know, we need a representative from BHOB, you know, whatever. And that's how a committee gets struck. But I'm quite sure that there is no sort of conscious effort to make sure that we contact, you know, the Friendship Center or any other kind of racialized community at all. I think it's just an ad in the paper, and we know how that goes, right? It tends to be the white folk that say, "Gee, I'd be interested in that. Let's do that." Whereas others probably say, "Well, you know, maybe I don't really belong there," you know, and that's my suspicion. I really liked your idea, Jake, of training for all committee members. And I think that that is certainly something that the city could do next time that we appoint these committees. I mean, we do, when we have a committee start, we give them information about harassment, and we give them information about how the city functions and things like that. And certainly, you know, a bit of training in whole question of race relations would be probably very easy to do. And secondly, would just raise that profile just a little bit and make everybody aware right off the hop. So I think I could certainly take that forward to our staff and make that recommendation for the next time. That's for sure. All right. Any more, Jake? No? Okay. All right. Community safety and well-being. Mike, we're putting you right on the spot here, just being new, but any thoughts on that?
Claire, just to bring it to your attention, Judy and Donald have their hand up.
Oh, okay, because I don't see that. Okay, thanks, Rob. I wonder why I don't see that. All right, ladies first. Judy.
Thanks, Rob and Claire. I'm sorry, I could try and just say to, I think it was Leanne and Donald who were, you know, worried about maybe speaking too much or going on, stepping on toes. I'll speak for myself, but I think I speak from the committee, like, please go on. We're really, like, this is what we've been thirsty for. This is what we want to get into, and you are just lighting a fire. So please continue. It's fantastic. And then just as a side note on making the recruitment more intentional for committees, but also the application process, I personally found to be so inaccessible. And I don't know which committee or part of maybe it's Access Barrie could be looking at how to make that less intimidating and less focused on what privilege got you to the place where you can list on this piece of paper how you can contribute to a city committee. I think that we could really attract some neat people if we look creatively at how we're recruiting and what kind of experience we're looking for. So I'll stop there.
Claire, can I just comment to that?
Yeah, sure, Sherry, and then I'll get Donald.
Yeah, only, sorry, Donald, not to jump on you, just because it's in relation to what Judy was talking about. Judy, I'm part of the Access Barrie team, so I don't know if offline, if there's any specific comments in regards to the application not being accessible that you'd be able to provide to us. A lot of the, we're provided with some of the information from our clerk's department to formulate the actual applications. But if there's an opportunity for us to improve that application process, next year is an election year, this would be a great opportunity for us to gather that feedback, and we could look at how we might be able to make those applications more accessible. I'd be very open to any other feedback you might have, and perhaps we could chat offline about that.
I might just,
Super, thank you.
I might just chime in on that too. I do think that the application forms that we see for committee members at the council are just not very helpful. So I think a total revamp of those forms would be long overdue. And if we can make them much more accessible at the same time, that would be terrific. So we'll put that in your job jar, Sherry. All right, Donald.
Actually, Sherry, we can help you out with that. If you want to send us over a copy to the task force, we'd be more than happy to take a look at that and see what we can do to try to make it more accessible.
That'd be great.
I'm a part of at least 15 different councils and communities in this community. And the reason for that is I wanted to ensure that there was a racialized voice on these committees and councils. And I'm surprised at how the lack of it on all of these councils that there is. So there's an important segment of our diverse city missing from a decision-making areas. There's a reason for that. There's this mistrust is one of the reasons, but one of the thing is too, is one of the things we discovered at the Ontario health teams is that some of the health teams are actually right now actually reimbursing expenses. A lot of the people that are missing from the table are single parents, people who have to work a number of jobs these are people that are missing, but an important part of our community. We need to try to be able to encourage the participation of every single individual, including youth, which isn't participating in participating in these councils and committees, and that's the future. So a lot of the councils and committees that I'm on right now, that this is how it looks, is what you see right here. So I'm not foreign to this, but we have to look at a different way of recruiting, of bringing people in. Belonging is the big thing. It's not easy just coming in, and so even as what's the word? Well, when we look at that stuff that you've got, Sherry, I'm sure we would be able to have some things that we can help out in there to try to attract a much more diverse group into a lot of these committees and councils, and that's going to help tremendously.
All right. Well, Donald, meet Sherry. It's an introduction service, really. It's not really a town and gown committee. All right. Anybody else got some thoughts on what we've been talking about? All right, Rob.
I just want to jump in and express gratitude for everybody for contributing and participating to this conversation. This has probably been the most important conversation this committee has held, at least in my time on it, and it's really wonderful that we're all here having it now.
I agree with that, Rob. I'm always the kind of action guy. So what's our next step? Any suggestions on that? Sherry's got something in her job jar. She's going to work on application form. Are there any other sort of things that we could do right off the top?
So I was just gonna say that I think for our purposes and sort of to bring more information back to this committee, I think an introduction between you, Donald, and Sula would be a great place to start, and some information sharing about, I think did you say you were on 19 different committees and councils? So you...
Not quite 19 yet, 15, but 15. I'm also chairperson on 3. And the ministry has asked me to participate in the long-term care council. But these are all I'm very passionate about every one of these things. And here's what's really important. I think it's important to understand. Every single one of these things that I'm a part of informs the other.
Yes.
So I have an incredibly large lens through which I can see the community. So I feel privileged to be able to be a part of them. I really do.
Well, I think it would be a privilege to be able to coordinate with you and all of your knowledge. Sula, so I'm sort of born and raised Barrie. Sula is new to the Barrie community, but has a wealth of expertise and knowledge as well, and some brings a lot of different experiences. So I think if we could connect and start to share some information as she formulates Georgian's strategic plan, again, which has to involve the community, I think that would, and there's a lot going on at Georgian in terms of education and awareness, and those opportunities are not always just for Georgian, but are often open to the whole community. And so I think that's another opportunity to share those pieces. So I will take away and connect you and Sula, and maybe we can find a time to meet as well.
All right. I think that's really great. And I'm just wondering, Leanne, just picking up on your last comment, have you turned your mind at all as to how you can connect with the community? And you said the community, and I took it that it would be the broader community, but what about the community right around Georgia? Have you ever sort of given any thought to that idea?
So we're talking about geography, right?
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, I think that is a key place to start because that's where the bulk of our students are living, working. That's where they start to build a sense of community and belonging. And that's where we also see some of the issues like racism and discrimination bubbling up. As well as sort of the historical student versus community sort of lived here for a long time. And now there's all these students, that sort of historical conflict that's always happened. And then adding some of the additional pieces with the increased diversity in that area. I think that's a great place to start in terms of our community building, and then sort of broaden that after we build those connections within our direct community.
Yeah, I think that for sure. I mean, there's historically always been conflict to some degree between students and the surrounding community. And now we're tending to have this extra layer attached to that. And yeah, we really need to think about how we build those bridges between the college and the community as far as racial relations go, especially.
Just a quick background. So I actually started my career with Sherry as a student in the city of Barrie, and it's so great to see you. But I remember when this committee first formed, and sort of that was the intention, was that immediate geography, creating some community networking and building upon that. So I appreciate that that's sort of where this originated from. And I'm just pleased to be here and happy to see Sherry, but I do, I think that was one of the original intentions of this. So I think it's great to bring it back to that with the EDI and anti-racism lens as well.
Okay, great. All right. Any other items, Rob?
Sorry, just one other thought. Sherry, maybe this is a question for you. So looking at that, like that Australian example with the sort of the racism, it starts with me, or it stops with me, excuse me. What possibility would there be for like Access Barrie to investigate or look into doing some type of a communications campaign around a theme like that? Is that something that your department could take on its own, or is that something your department would require direction from council in order to take on?
I think we'd probably need some type of direction, because it would be great if it could be led through our anti-racism task force, and then through our corporate channels, we would amplify that messaging, would be my preference. And then through all of our channels, and we could replicate the messaging and share it, and all of our channels, we could put it in all of our corporate assets like This Week in Barrie and all of those places. But I think the right place for it to live would be with the task force, and then we support them in that initiative. Donald, I see your hand up. Are you agreeing?
Yeah,
Agreeance with
because
that?
I'm
Okay.
excited, because that's the way I'd like it to go. Yes.
Okay, I think that makes sense to me if there's agreement around the table for that.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave in about 8 minutes because I'm meeting with a media coalition, so we can get some more diversity in. So I'll just sneak out at the time.
We'll let you sneak out, Donald, but we may want to get you back in a couple of months and reconvene this conversation, actually. Yeah, I think that
whenever you want me, I'm available. Mm-hmm.
All right. Wednesday mornings. I lost what I was going to say, but I do think that that's the way to go is from the task force. City can come in, support, and Sherry, if you think you need some help from council on that, let me know, because we'll get behind
I don't
it.
think we do if we're going to amplify. If we were going to lead the campaign would be one thing, but if we're going to support and amplify the messaging through the anti-racism task force, we're good to go.
Great. Okay. Excellent. All right. Any other discussion on this? All right. And those that I can't see, like Judy, just unmute yourself and holler at me, because I can't see whether your hand is up or not. All right.
No, this is great. I love it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Donald, feel free to sneak out. We're going to shift topics a little bit. And thank you very much for your input and help today. And I think, our next meeting is in January sometime. So we may want to call you back on that, and just to have
absolutely.
Let's pick up some pieces here and keep this momentum going.
I'd love to come back. And listen, thank you all for such positive feedback. I absolutely love it. This is a great group. I'm real excited. We're going to make some things happen here. So you all have a great day.
All right.
And I'll see you
very much.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a great group. We've been wrestling with this for a while. So I think that, I feel good about this.
Stop wrestling. We're going to get it done.
Thank
You're
you.
the action guy, right? Let's do it.
That's me.
Okay. See ya.
All right. See you, Donald. All right. Let's just switch gears just a little bit. Do we have more to talk about on that subject? All right. My suggestion actually is that we usually don't meet in December, and our next meeting would be then in January, that we pick this up again and invite the same kind of group of people, and let's see if we can shove this down the road a little bit and make things happen. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the 2022 meeting schedule. And we have historically met on the third Wednesday morning of each month. Is that something that is still, sorry, fourth, did you say, or third?
Third.
All right, third. Brandy, help me out.
Yeah, third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. So
Is it not the
essentially,
fourth one? I
Yeah,
think
this
maybe
is the
it's
fourth. This
it's
is
the fourth
the
month.
fourth.
Yes. I'm looking at so many different meetings. Fourth Wednesday every month, 10 a.m. So essentially the point of this agenda item, which is mine, was basically just to confirm with the committee that that is still good with everybody.
Still good? All right, I see some thumbs up. All right, so
Yes.
next year, fourth Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday.
Of every month. Okay.
So that would bring us January 19, if I'm correct. I'll
No.
just look it up ahead of time.
January 26th.
January 26th, there it is. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a tough one. All right. Now, let's have the next item on the agenda is Georgian College updates. So anything you want to bring us up to date on, Brian or Leanne?
Sure. I'll just do a real quick update, conscious of time for folks here. We will have our orientation on what we call Head Start, which is sort of a pre-orientation for our students. will take place the week of January 3rd to 7th. That'll be the orientation week. Classes don't actually begin until January 10th. The sessions will all be virtual until we get to January 7th. So that Friday, we're calling it Explore Campus Life, and it'll be an on-campus event. So we're encouraging students to come to campus, get to know the campus. For our first year students, they'll have never been here. And for some of our upper year students, they will not have physically stepped foot on the campus as well. So we're making the orientation really open to first year students and any returning students. And during December, we'll have a number of virtual, what we call the Head Start programs. And then a slightly off topic here, Claire, you'll be interested in this. We're actually about to go out and survey our students. We're trying to get a handle on how many of our students are going to need housing, and those that already have it, where are they getting the housing, what's the price range, and really starting to get a little more data and metrics around that of what our student needs are as they start to come back to campus now. And that was it for me.
So will you be 100% on campus starting in January?
No, so we'll be about 90% of our students will have at least some activity. So we're still working through the scheduling process, and we should know later into December what that'll actually look like, but they'll at least have some activity. That may just be one class, it may be all of their classes. So as we get into December, and Jason knows this, I'll share this with Jason and the transit folks, we'll actually be able to provide some numbers of how many people are on campus every hour. So that we use that to help with the bus pass. So the U Pass will be back in January and back active. And I see Judy has her hand up. Did you have a question, Judy?
Oh.
Yes, first a comment, Brian. Sorry. I love hearing that you are starting to do some data collection around student housing. The college is in a great position to get some cursory data that the city could really use. So yay. And then, excuse me, do you see any opportunity for the city to provide some kind of welcome during the orientation period?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always open to any connection with the city. So it's still Shauna Morrison and Asia O'Connor are our two leads around that. And they're certainly happy. I can have them reach out. Best to connect with Claire?
Yeah. Does Sherry, you're still on the line. Is it your office that would be the ones that would be involved in something like that?
I'm trying to start my video, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I don't know why it wasn't starting, my apologies. In regards to what part of that, Claire? So for us to do the presentation or?
Student orientation, because I know that, I know fire and police are involved in that generally.
Yeah, so generally our role is we provide the tools for the departments to go to the orientation. So if Carrie's team requires literature and handouts, we create the materials for them. Same with our transit and parking team, we create the materials because they're the subject matter experts. So they're able to address, because we just wouldn't know the details of some of the work that those departments might be doing, but we would create the assets and the materials that would be the takeaways for those staff to leave for students. So that would be our involvement.
Okay. Brian, do you know what you would like to have from the city in this regard? Or Judy, do you have a suggestion?
Yes. Go ahead, Judy.
I think, yeah, well, similar to going to orientation, that's not going to be the case this time around, but a welcome from, I mean, it's nice to have a mayor's welcome, but also the city of Barrie welcomes you, and really, trying to infuse that sense of belonging that we talked about from day one from the city, not with just thinking beyond the logo. I don't have any like specific thoughts because that's not my area, but I think we've talked about it a lot, and I'm hoping there's an opportunity to be creative this year.
So it's a good point, Judy, and it makes me think about when my boys were in university and I dropped them off. There was often some things happening. 2 went to Guelph and 1 to Laurier, and as you drive into the city, there'd be banners from the city welcoming new students, etc. So it may be some, because we have the connections with Carrie and others with city around sort of having a booth or messaging getting out, but maybe it is more about, does the city then welcome students to the community? So broader than just kind of that orientation day or orientation week. Leanne,
what about like a video from the ward councillor welcoming all of the new students into the college? I mean, like in the virtual format, that could be achieved.
In terms of tangible things, I think our students would really love to know what's going on in the city of Barrie. So if there's like a bit of an events planned, in the coming months, I don't know if there's like an events calendar that the city does. Things about where things are, where's City Hall, where's downtown, what will you find there, that kind of stuff that will encourage them to go out and explore the city. I know, and then we have often had the Barrie Police as well be part of orientations. Super important for international students to see a friendly face in uniform. So all of those things have always worked out really well.
So the best thing for that, sorry, Claire, I didn't mean to speak over top of you there. The best thing for that, to address some of the comments from Leanne, would be our Ping Street app is really the best thing, because through the Ping Street app, all of our events are listed, and not just corporate events, but community events. So any event that is actually published to the City of Barrie online events calendar gets pushed out through Ping Street. So they'll see what's happening at a very, organic level, also what's being done corporately. And, for students, they might be interested in more the smaller kind of unique things that might pop up in their neighborhood. So I would really encourage students to download Ping Street. It's a really easy way to access the city, find out information, and it links back to the website if they can't find what they're looking for. Obviously, we drive everything back to our website as a centralized resource.
That's awesome. An app is a very student-friendly way of communicating and connecting.
Yeah, and if you think, Leanne, that it would be helpful to have a message from myself, I don't know how that gets done, but I'm happy to be your guinea pig if that's what it takes. Because maybe you're right. It's a great way to introduce students to the city. I remember being a student and coming to a strange city and not knowing a thing about it, but that's a great idea.
Help them feel a sense of belonging, as we heard so eloquently previously.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll work on that. And I suppose, how do you drive students to Ping Street? Maybe that's something Leanne and Brian and Georgian College can think about. And if there's something you need from me, just let me know. All right.
One thing Leanne and I could touch base on as well, or Brian, whoever wants to send me just like that perfect window of opportunity, we could do some geocached ads within the area of Georgian College. And we have done that before when we started with transit, and there was some work that we had done with transit, and the geocache ads allows us to target the area around the college. And we could just be a pure promotion on Ping Street, get to know your city, that kind of thing, because it's a free app. So to Leanne's point, everyone loves an app. It's all in one place. So we could certainly, for a low cost with great return for us to support and promote the app.
Yeah, some great ideas. All right. Sherry and Leanne can follow that up. Anything else as far as Georgian College goes? Can we? All right.
Claire, I might just add
Michael.
something to what Sherry was just saying there. And Sherry, you might know a bit more about this than I do. So if you do, just feel free to step in. I know on the Discover Barrie website, there's one of the web apps there. I think it's something like My Neighborhood Services or something like that. That is, I think, a great tool. And I point a lot of people toward this when I'm out talking to these students. Basically, you can type in your address and it will tell you where the closest recreational center is, where the closest parks are, what day your garbage collection is. It has a lot of information about services near where you live. I'm not sure if that information is also available through the Pink Street app, Sherry, or if it can be introduced, but that's a good thing.
We can link to the GIS portal, but it's not a specific tile within the portal. But there are ways in which we could creatively get around that, for lack of another way, like whether we do the landing graphic and we link to it. But that neighborhood map, to Michael's point, is a great tool, and that came out through another conversation we had. I believe that Georgian College was involved in another way for students to find out what's happening in their neighborhood. So thanks for the reminder on that. That's another fabulous tool that can be leveraged.
It shows you as a map too, and it can even show you where the stops are. Like there's little bits of information that are, I think, would be great for the students as well.
Yeah.
Great, good suggestions.
If I could just comment as well, just from a Barrie Police standpoint, because I am new to this position, I was just wondering if Leanne can kind of send me some of that information on that date and time where if you want Barrie Police present, because I can certainly start organizing that now, because we do have an officer that normally attends those type of initiatives. And I think that's a fantastic idea, because I just remember my son, I was dropping him off in North Bay at Nipissing, and I didn't see the police presence, but I wasn't expecting it either. But I think it's a great idea, especially for international students, being able to at least see that police are approachable, more inclusive, and I think and open, and at least tell them that some of our functions in the community and whatnot. So I think it's a great idea, and I certainly can organize that and set that up.
That's great. I will connect back with our international department, who does a lot of the orientation for international students. But we've often been sort of the connection point for this type of presentation. So that's great. Thank you.
That's great. Good. All right. Anything else there? All right. Let's go and do the sort of quick round, conscious of the time. Jason, any update from you?
I don't have a lot in the interest of time, as you mentioned, but I will mention a couple of things that we're about to roll out. Snow is here. As you're aware, there was a couple of winter maintenance events already declared. But as of December 1st, the overnight parking restrictions do come into force. They are enforced from December 1st to March 31st. 7 days a week, regardless of the weather conditions. And there are staff out there. The first week is going to be a week of warnings, provided we don't get a big dumping like we just did, and vehicles need to be cleared. They'll focus on warnings to vehicles parked on the street, and then into enforcement after that. The only other thing we've had going on is, even though things are opening up and more people are allowed to do things with the COVID restrictions, we're still very busy with those complaints on a regular basis, masking, proof of vaccination complaints, numbers of people in certain places still. So we're still busy with those things as well.
All right. Yeah, no shortage of work for you. Michael, did you want to say anything more?
Sorry, were you talking to me, Michael, or
yeah, Michael? Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I have just a bit of a statistical update, I guess I'll give, and this will be for the year so far, so from January 1st until this morning. In a nutshell, there's been just over 820 zoning complaints. That's citywide. About 45, just over 45% of that number, so about just over 380 of those were in the east end, the northeast end of Barrie. And by that, I mean everything east of Bayfield Street. Now, I've dealt with all of the complaints in that area, so I can tell you that probably about 75% of those were in or in close proximity to the George neighborhood. So quite the majority of those, I would say, are in relation to Georgian College. Now, we're kind of split right down the middle as to interior zoning problems versus exterior zoning problems. But interior zoning issues, these are mostly 2-unit houses or accessory dwelling units and boarding, lodging, rooming houses. Those are probably 90% of the interior zoning violations that we see. In terms of exterior issues, most of these, about 70%, are in relation to either vehicles being stored on landscaped portions of the lot or driveway requirements. The rest of them are some commercial standards that we have or accessory building location standards. So we've been fairly busy this year. This is, I would say, about on average as to the number of complaints that we get. But we'll see how the rest of the year goes.
All right, thank you. All right, any other things that we should address today? And I'm going to ask Judy, if you want to unmic yourself and say something, that's fine. I can't see when you've got your hand up, so. All right, well, we've had a great meeting. I am seriously thinking about inviting Donald, I just lost his name, Donald, back again for our January meeting, just to make sure that this thing keeps moving forward. We won't meet in December, but we'll see you again in January 26th. So I guess I should wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and all the best of all the holidays. And so I will adjourn this meeting, and thank you very much for all your work. See you again.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.